we're going to start today with a little bit of marketing vocabulary trivia, I guess you could call it. Us marketers, we really like acronyms. So, what is SaaS?
Oh my gosh, software as a service.
Okay, and what would
Am I
be like an
right?
example? What's your favorite? Yes, you are. What's your favorite example of SaaS?
I don't know what my favorite example. What's your favorite example? I use so many online platforms right now. My head is spinning with how many things that I'm using.
I mean, I think that pretty much anything that you can think of is pretty much SaaS nowadays. Um, my ClickUp is SaaS. We run our business off of ClickUp, the project management software. I mean, Canva is SaaS.
Yeah, I use Airtable. I don't know if I could survive without Airtable.
Yeah,
But yeah, I think our lives now are just integrated with SaaS.
I think
So
so.
let's do something sassy, Nicole.
With that being said, welcome. This is What the Frac, where we break down marketing trends, strategies, and tactics in 20 minutes or less, or so we try, so you could do the fun things like be creative. We're your fractional team. I'm Nicole.
And I'm Tamara.
And today we're breaking down tech SaaS. I think that's what we're doing. Go to market because this is a big topic. So,
See.
Tamara, tell us how we're going to do this.
Sassy, go to market. That is what we're talking about today. So, Nicole, I don't know. I get asked what's the best way to go to market for a new tech startup. I feel like almost every other day. So, I felt like we had to do an episode on this.
The crazy part about it is that no two SaaS platforms are the same, and no two SaaS go to markets are the same.
Exactly. And so, I decided let me put together something that's a little bit generic. So, today we're going to talk about how to assess your marketing strategy, test it, and refine it, all for a startup SaaS company. And you know what? This actually has a lot of applications for really any tech company that's going out either B2B or B2C. So let's dive in. As always, we start out with our fractional situation report. And so before we get started, I just want to say who I'm kind of really talking about here. So this breakdown is really for a SaaS startup. Let's just say you've got about 5 team members. You have a minimum viable product, so you are ready to onboard customers. And you're a couple months out from launching, right? So you've launched and you've decided that you totally need to pivot. So before you get started, there are a few things that you need to have in place before you really implement a go-to-market strategy. 1, Nicole, you need to know your target audience. 2, you have to have a value proposition and messaging. 3, you have to have sales and a pricing strategy. You need to have a touch point map, and you need to have the metrics that you want to track. What do you think? Is there anything that you would want to add in there?
For go to market, no, I think you hit on most of the points. I think that we're always going to think about budget and we're always going to think about outcomes as well. And it's even more important with go to market.
100%. So before you and I craft strategies, we always ask ourselves some questions. For me, my number one question when startups are starting to go for customers is, do you want revenue right away or do you want market share? So let me explain why. This is very important. And there are 2 specific strategies, right? If you want revenue right away, you're probably going to be going after a smaller audience. It's going to be very targeted. You're going to have a higher onboarding process, right? And you're going to have to give up some of the market size because you may be, if you're charging revenue, you can't do the freemium, right? Or you've got to have some sort of interesting freemium model. And you have to extract something from people without being a trusted brand yet. So you're building brand credibility and revenue at the same time, which is a little bit complicated, but you can craft a strategy around that. If you're going for market share, you can, you're not trying to extract something first. You can give stuff away. You can build that brand credibility faster because you're allowing people to try out your product, but you're giving up that revenue. And, what's really important about the revenue, if you're a startup, you have to think about your investors and your stakeholders, right? If you're trying to raise capital, Sometimes some investors only want to see the revenue, right? Other
Mhm.
times investors just want to see the growth. So you have to craft what you want and then go after that. If you play in the middle, you're just going to end up like, treading water and not accomplishing any of your goals.
Yeah, and I think there's really successful examples of both of these strategies, right? PayPal is very famous for going after the market share, basically
Yeah.
losing revenue in the very beginning by paying for referrals. But then once they, had the market share, then and they integrated with eBay, nobody else can really touch them, right? And so they're a really great example of that market share. And then revenue,
Yep.
there's some really good examples of revenue too, but with revenue you're going to want to scale fast, right? And so that really brings into a whole nother piece of questions in terms of the revenue. And generally also, Tamara, when I see that revenue is the way to go, it's because startups either underestimated or did not raise enough capital. And so they become in this very reactive state of looking for revenue. So if you're planning for revenue to be your way to go, and you're not in that reactive state, great, keep going. But if you're doing it because of your burn rate and not having enough money, then that's where you're going to have to reevaluate. Maybe should you be bringing on more money, or why did you underestimate how much you were going to need?
100%. It usually does have to do with some sort of capital issue. But that said, nowadays we really have to look at how people are getting their revenue, right? Because I do believe that investors do want to see that, or see that path to
Hmm.
um, you know, being EBITDA positive. So you do have to look at that, put it in your plan, but whether or not it's what you're doing right out of the gate, again, that's a decision you have to make. What's one of your number one questions?
My first question is going to be around feature timeline and beachhead market. So, a beachhead market is really who are you going to hit first, right? Who is going to be your
Mhm.
first market? And so often I see startups, especially SaaS, because they can work for a lot of different markets, their go to market strategy is to hit everyone. And that really is not going to work, right? We want to hit the markets first that have the lowest barrier to entry, maybe the lowest cost. Try to get some people on there and using your platforms. There's no matter how much work you've done on it, there's going to be things that need to get changed or that you didn't think about. And then how do you expand your markets from there? And this all also goes back to feature timeline. So we don't need to build every feature into the SaaS platform from day one and wait till, years before we launch. But what features are needed right now to make your platform not just a need, but not just a want, but a need for people, especially people in your beachhead market. And then once you can show, um, you can show stickiness and you can show that there's momentum and that people want what you have, then you can start adding some new features, adding new markets, and you could build that plan forward. But having that plan is really important.
Yeah, I love that. And actually, I'm excited because we're doing a whole episode, a case study on Slack. And they did that well. And it's done through feedback loops, right? Figuring out what that is, what features are needed for that beachhead market. It's all about feedback loops, which I feel like, we're also going to have to do just a whole episode on that, because I think I say that every single time we chat, Nicole.
Yeah,
Um,
and I think, Tamara, one thing that's really important that comes back to this beachhead market piece is a network effect, right? All of these great SaaS platforms have a network effect, and you'll see that in the Slack case study. Is that every person who comes on adds value, and if you're
yep.
missing out on that value, whether it's through feedback loops, like you just said, or you don't have the right features built yet, then you're going to not build that network effect. And all great SaaS platforms have that.
Exactly. Well, so now you might be surprised about my last question,
Okay.
because it doesn't necessarily have to do with marketing itself. But I always like to ask, what are the top strengths of each team member, right? Because
Mm,
usually with these small, lean teams, you have, a handful of people, most of which are not marketing professionals, but need to do marketing related items, right?
Mhm.
So, you kind of survey the team and you say, what are you good at or what do you like to do? Right. Because making someone on your team do social media who hates social media or like isn't on social media is the worst thing to do. Right. So if you
Mhm.
can audit your team members and align these, like the next tasks that have to be done, the tactics that have to be done, with some of their skills, then you're going to get more success versus if you just start assigning these, or if you're a founder and you just try and do it all yourself,
Mhm.
it's
Yep.
not going to work. Right.
Yeah.
So I like to do a little bit of a team audit and then delegate all of these tactics to whoever is best at doing them. Um, so before we get into the tactics, let's take a look again at our situation report. So, you know, one thing you have to know, obviously, we said you have to know your community, you have to know your branding. The strategy that we're looking at today is what I'm calling the sassy go to market strategy. We like to coin our own names for these strategies. So, it's the sassy go to market strategy. And what it is it's building credibility, it's creating an excellent experience, and then it's converting those customers, right? So credibility, experience, converting to customer acquisition, the sassy go to market strategy. And I reverse engineer all of my strategies. So I start with the outcomes. With you know marketing strategies like this, I like to create KPIs and then have my outcomes based on numbers, right? Not just like, oh, we want to get customers by November, right? How many customers do you want? So a good outcome would align with how many customers do you want each month, or what growth do you want to see each month? Do you want to see 10% growth month over month? Well, then you can do something where you create a waiting list and then you let on 10% more each month, and then you have this growth curve, right? um there's a whole bunch of ways to engineer that growth that you want. So pick your desired outcome, and move towards that. So I said, some good things that to look at, like look at 60% retention rate, have customers recommend new users. How many customers do you, or how many new recommendations do you want a month? And budget is something really important to look at here. I often talk to people who have no budget, right? So there are
Mhm.
ways to do this without budget is when we look at the tactics, but really what you do want is you want about 5 to 25,000 a month, right? That's reasonable when looking at any seed stage marketing campaign.
Yeah.
And touch points, right, Nicole? You want to hit all of the touch points that you can. So the touch points, you'd want to have some homepage, lead magnets, blogs, social, partnerships, reviews. Um, and the tactics that we're going to go into are going to include, like offering free trials, leveraging cost-effective digital platforms, and partnerships. So all of this goes back to credibility, experience, and converting. So let's take a look a little closer into that. Um, the first thing that I like to talk about with founders is that credibility, right? You have to start building that because brand trust isn't something that happens overnight. You have to start getting it out there. It's a waterfall effect. So, subject matter expert marketing. I know, I'm sure
Mhm.
everyone's heard about this, but you need to figure out a way to really get your brand and the concepts that you're talking about out there without sounding too educational and boring. Right, Nicole?
Yeah, I think it really comes down to who are those first buyers, right? Who are the buyers we're getting on? And sometimes you have to do a beta group of buyers who are these SMEs, right? These subject matter experts that you know are perfect for your product. Put them on for free, right? And have them use it. And then when you launch the paid version to the community, they already have testimonials, they are building, they already have credibility, and so they're essentially piggybacking off their credibility.
Yep. And have them, so create content around this, right? So easy ways to do this are, creating LinkedIn events, getting people's emails. Those emails go into your marketing emails then. You can do ebooks. You can do, pamphlets. Anything that builds that credibility, you can use those subject matter experts, put it in there, make it interesting and fun, start generating those leads and putting them into your funnel. Lead magnets. So we all know what lead magnets are, but I like to use them in an interesting way to collect more data on our customers or potential customers. So when doing something like an event, when doing something like putting out a pamphlet or an ebook, ask for some more information that's going to get to know your customer a little bit more, or do a quiz form. And at the end of it, then they get something special that has to do with your product. So
Yeah.
that's building credibility and utilizing something new.
Yeah, and lead magnets are a really great spot, like you said, for data so that we can be validating our buyer personas. So when we start with a buyer persona, it's generally a lot of educated guess and market research. And the biggest mistake you could make is leaving that buyer persona and letting it just kind of live in your Google Drive, right, Tamara? So this data should be validating the assumptions we made in our buyer personas, but also when you're a SaaS platform, depending on what type of SaaS platform, how expensive your solution is, and things like that, you may have a sales team. You may be doing more automation, right? If your platform costs less money, then automation's the way to go, right? Marketing and automation. If it costs a little bit more money and needs a little bit more ABM marketing or account based marketing, you may have a sales team. And these lead magnets are a perfect way to say, yes, I'm a hand raiser. I'm interested in something that you are connected to in some way, and then hand it off to the sales team to kind of investigate that lead. So lead magnets are great for a lot of different things, Tamara.
You're totally right. The next step in this that I look at, experience. Right now, the number one thing that I see in the marketing funnel for lean startups is a discombobulated journey from discovery to purchase, right?
Absolutely.
That can take so many steps. And so, what I challenge founders and marketing teams to do is to count those steps, right? Plot out those journeys. And I think this is something that we often do, when we're doing our marketing strategy, but it's a missed step by startups because they're working so fast and they just think, well, we did this and they should sign up. Make a chart and count those steps. And we actually include one on our deck that we have. So you can go in the link, you can download this deck, and in the back, there is a chart where you can plot your own steps and we show you how to do it. Because I think
Yes.
it's just so important to think about that.
This is a huge one. And I also challenge everyone to not just plot your journey now. I think that's a great idea, Tamara. I think also plot the journey, the ideal journey you want. And that's where you can start seeing if there's holes in your journey. And then also give each step a KPI. Right. So if
Yeah.
you know that in order to hit your goal of that 60% churn rate or stickiness rate, you need to have people converting at a certain point at a certain percentage. Make sure there's numbers around those KPIs, and that'll be the easiest way to find out when you're saying, "Oh, we have traffic, but we're not converting." That'd be the easiest way to see where it's breaking down in the funnel, because most often we don't have numbers around that, and so right away people just think we need to add more people to the funnel. But at the end of the day, if you have a leak in your funnel, it's not going to matter how many people we put to the top, right?
You love funnels. I love feedback.
We all have our things.
We all have our things. Um, so while putting this together, I like to think outside the box a little bit with some things that aren't necessarily the traditional thing that you'd think of when it comes to marketing experience. And with this, I like to look at chatbots,
Mm,
right?
yeah.
Especially when people are landing on new pages and where founders are trying to figure out how people are interacting with their new platform. Chatbots are exceptional ways to do that, right? And so many times people will be like, well, if you've got a chatbot, then you have to be like either um, available 24/7, or there's a whole bunch of things that they think about that they're like, it freaks them out. You can put parameters on it, right? I've been to so many websites where I utilize the chatbot and they're like, great, someone will be back to you in 48 hours. And though that's not necessarily the experience that you would like, understanding the time frame and the frameworks that someone's going to get back to you, most people will be fine with that. So chatbots are something that I really think people should explore if they have the money and the ability to integrate it into their system.
But it's a 100% or nothing situation though, Tamara, because if you are going to set it up, even if you're not going to be there 24/7 answering it, make sure you set up the functionality for there to be FAQs, or for there to be knowledge base that it could send if they have a very specific question, right? Or that you actually follow up when you say you're going to follow up, right? Because a lot of times I see people put these quick chat bots on their website. It says they're going to follow up, and then nobody ever gets a notification that someone asked a question, right? And so then there's no
Yeah,
customer service. And there's nothing worse than someone using a chat bot and the customer service just isn't there.
100%. 100%. I love that. It's 100% or nothing. Well, and finally, we get to the most important thing, which is convert. You want to
Mm.
convert those people who come to your site to customers. And one thing that I find really interesting is the trial side. So if you want to do a freemium or a free trial sort of conversion tactic, sometimes you want to look at the time of the trial, right?
Mm.
You might think longer is better, but actually, what we're seeing in different studies that are coming out is shorter trials are better. You want to have people come on, you want to have them thinking about your product, you want to have them using it as, when it's top of mind, and converting them as soon as possible. If you give people too long, then they may, utilize your product, think it's great, but then they forget about you. It's hard to get them back. So try to convert as fast as possible. And you may have to do some A/B testing on the timeline that you think works best for your customers. Is it one day? Is it one
Mm.
week? But try not to have it be too long.
Yeah.
And the final one, referrals. Referrals are my favorite, Nicole. I love referrals.
I could tell you're very excited about referrals.
Well, they're great, right? There's no better way. It's the credibility of it coming from someone. Set up a referral program, right? Figure out how to do referrals. And referrals are also easy. There are so many ways to do them, and there are SaaS platforms out there that just do referrals and plug into your site. So,
Yeah.
I mean,
And
Morning Brew, one of my favorite newsletters, morning newsletters, one of the newsletters that started newsletters, they started out with referrals.
yeah. I mean, just as simple as putting at the bottom of your newsletter, send this to a friend that might need it, right? Once again, like we talk about with call to actions, if people don't know that they're supposed to refer, they may not think about it. But referrals is a great way, because it's basically like if we go back to before the internet, when you would go to your neighbor who you trusted and said, hey, I need this service. I need someone to fix my roof. Who do you use, right? It's a word of mouth referral is the best way you can. It's wonderful. Yeah, I love that shorter trials one as well. I think that that's a really interesting one to test, and it'll be really interesting to see some of the stats on those, because I had not heard of that. I've heard of like the free shipping and those pieces, but also just making sure that you actually are following up and using these leads, because the trials, they may end, but do you have a nurture? Do you have something to get people back
Yes.
in? Right. And so often we do all the big pieces and then we forget about the little pieces. And so once again, we could put as many people through our funnel, the top of our funnel, as we want. But if we're not nurturing them, or my favorite one for startups is really the white glove customer onboarding experience, because a lot of times it's not that customers can't use your product, but really that they just don't understand exactly how to onboard or exactly how to use it. My favorite example of this is Asana. They have these web pages that actually show how to use Asana for different types of projects. So like if I am a marketer, if I'm a real estate agent, if I am even a lawyer or whatever, right? How can you set up Asana to use it for your place. And I think it's kind of like when we watch like House Hunters International, people say things like, oh, the walls are pink, we can't buy this place. And it's like they can't see past the color, right? So a lot of people, you may think your product is really super easy to use and really easy to understand, but a lot of people can't see past that. So if you can just onboard them with a little bit of white glove, figure out where people are confused, and then eventually automate it or build out some FAQs about it, you'll find that people adapt it a lot quicker.
What's so funny, that you say that is it's so true because you've designed a product. You've been in the weeds of it, right? And to you, it works perfectly and you can
Hmm.
navigate it, right? But to a brand new user, they can have a completely different experience. And so that's where, like what you're saying, the people may not be able to get past that UX UI design. And so you either have to find workarounds while you're solving the problem, or you have to solve the problem quickly. And that's where the feedback loop comes in.
I was gonna say this
In the
comes
special
right back
episode
to
on feedback.
yes, right away. Like, right, I know it seems like a lot more work or you need more people, but having that white glove onboarding experience, especially for your first 100 users, you really get that
Yeah.
feedback loop without having to send them a survey and hope that they fill it out, right? You get that real time feedback loop and you're able to kind of see things that you may have missed in the weeds.
Yeah. And if you're looking for a good, user journey experience in these platforms, Pendo is a good one. There's other ones as well, but you can plug something in. You can actually watch how people utilize it. So, with that, Nicole, what are the key takeaways?
Ooh, I love these takeaways. So, the takeaways: revenue or market share. So, which are you going to go after? Reduce the steps. Make sure that the steps they're actually doing, it doesn't mean only do 1 or 2 steps, but make sure that steps your customers are actually doing are useful to them and that will get them to the end point. Don't have it all on social media. So, we need to kind of change it up a little bit. I personally think that the best marketing plans have a balance between traditional marketing, ABM, things like that, and digital marketing. So ads, social, all of those pieces. And then when you swing too far one way or the other, you're going to have an unbalanced marketing plan. Gather data and customers through lead magnet tactics. These are wonderful because a lot of times we can automate lead magnets and we can learn data about our customers, and we know when we have hand raisers or warm leads. Integrate trackable referral programs. So everything from your current customers referring their friends to affiliate marketing, that is all referral programs using credibility of other people and SMEs to give yourself credibility. And go for reviews. Once again, you're a new startup, a new brand, you need to have some credibility, and reviews are the best way to do that.
Yeah, and I guess we didn't talk about reviews too much because I put the chat bot in there that I wanted to talk about, but reviews are so critical, right? They're the
Absolutely.
yeah, they're the credibility that you're going for. Reviews are fantastic. Try to get them from your customers, try to get them in public. So it's something that's very important.
I have an honorable mention, Tamara. So, it came up, we didn't put this in the deck because it came up as we were talking here. And I think one thing for startups, even SaaS startups, is that generally the founders think we're online. Let's just put it all online and nobody has to see me or nobody has to like interact with me and that whole thing. And very often they come to us as a marketing firm and want us to do everything, build their company, right? One thing I would give you the advice of is if you're a founder, do a little bit of the hustle. Do it yourself because let's say you have a SaaS platform for gyms. Go and set up your table at gyms and talk to the people. And the more you talk to your customers, the more feedback you're going to get and be able to make those changes, hear what the FAQs are, hear what the problems they're having, and you won't be out of touch with your customer.
Feedback is king and get it where you can. I love it. I love that honorable mention. Um, well, and so speaking of the small businesses and large businesses that we work with, we like to give a little bit of recommendation for each. So if you are a small or new organization, don't try to do every marketing tactic right out of the gate, right? Pick the tactic that your team is the strongest at, then design a system that has the least amount of steps to acquire new customers. Test those and refine them. Don't be everything to everyone.
I love that one. It also saves you budget, gets you in front of your
Mhm.
customers, and once you have it refined, then you could do another tactic. Why not? But
Exactly.
so for established brands, Tamara, it's all about that data and that feedback. Once you have established that your acquisition model is working towards your desired outcomes, now it's time to take that data and feedback, continuously utilize it to improve your systems, and then use API integrations and other integrations to bring in more features for your customers, build on your brand, and become a really good need to have, not just a want to have.
100%. That is fantastic. Well, Nicole, that is our show today.
I know, and we keep forgetting to tell people that they can get this deck by downloading it below in the link below. Also, don't forget to subscribe because every Thursday and Saturday we have new episodes, case studies, troubleshooting. We are here because we are your fractional team.
Right. So hit that subscribe button. Like Nicole said, download our deck and follow us on social media. Let us know if there is anything that you would like us to troubleshoot or any case studies that you'd like us to look into. And with that, happy marketing.
Happy marketing.